Well, Heidi ho, my peeps. Grant is gallantly moving things off the porch for me so that I can gain a little better access to all of my scrubbing and power washing that needs to be done. I got a lot done yesterday. You can see that section of floor is looking better. But there's quite a bit left to do. I'm having him take that mirror down because I want to hang the cabinet mirrors that you see down there up on either side of my window. I'm going to move that mirror over to that wall and then, just kind of freshen things up. I'm giving serious thought to painting my ceiling light blue. I don't know if I have enough paint lying around, and I'm not going to buy anything new. I'm going to use what I've got. So I think I might have a couple different kinds of blue that if I mix with a nice white semi-gloss exterior, I will have a color that will work for Haint Blue up there. Planning on leaving my trim white, although I am going to repaint my front door and the trim that's around it. I'm going to make that all the same color. I really like that creamy white color that I used. The name of that color is Cafe au lait. So I'm going to try to mix up something that matches. I'm going to put my mom's cash pot inside. I was with her when she bought this. I was about, I don't know, maybe 8 years old or so. And let's see, I'll put it right here.
You gonna make me move burrito?
No, I think we should probably move burrito. Those are my donkey's ashes right there.
Where?
Oh, just anywhere out there, baby. I've been collecting I'm going to turn this around. Okay, darling, thank you. Grant's going to take a break here. He's been taking hardware off and moving things, and bless his heart. Anyway, as a lot of you guys know, I've been collecting pet ashes because when I go, I want my pets to go with me. Now, I might end up in the ocean. That'll be easy. We can throw all the pets in with me. Or I might go in a compost situation. They're building these on the West Coast. I don't know if they have them on the East Coast or the Midwest. But basically, they're just these chambers that they put your body in with a bunch of organic material like wood chips and stuff like that. And then they blow cool oxygen across your, well, not cool, I guess it's probably lukewarm, oxygen across your body and across the wood chips. And it takes about 30 days for you to decompose into humus. And apparently there's no human DNA left when they're done. And that sounds like my way to go. They will return this humus. It's about it ends up being about a pickup bed full after you're done. They can distribute it to your family, or they can take it up into, right now they're taking it up into the Sierras for reforestation material, or a combination thereof. And that's what I would do. Whoever's left alive that cares, they'll each get their own cubic foot of humus, and everything else, throw me on top of a bunch of redwood seedlings. That would make me very happy. So, it's funny. I know I talk about death and dying more and more these days, and I know a lot of you, it's disturbing because I remember when I was younger, 30s into my 40s, the idea of death and dying just freaked me out. Didn't want to think about it. But now that I've turned the corner into 65, it's become sort of kind of a fun little project to figure out, who's going to have to go through my worthless junk, and am I going to leave any Easter eggs for people? Where do I want to be distributed after I die? How many videos am I going to leave as direct little speeches to whomever is left over? I mean, this kind of stuff, it's really sort of a fun project when you think about it. Yeah. So, I'm working on that, but mostly what I'm working on is writing. Those of you who are following my story, and it's not a real big percentage of you guys, but those of you who are reading it, and responding that you're enjoying the story, thank you so much. So far I haven't had any criticism, and criticism is very good. For example, you can say whatever you want, but I would expect people to say things like, well, your descriptions are too long, or I don't know enough about this particular room in the house. I'm having a hard time visualizing it. Or I don't understand the relationship between this person and that person. It doesn't strike a chord as being genuine, whatever. Whatever jumps out at you and makes you leave the enchantment of the story, that's the kind of stuff that if it occurs to you, let me know. I've also said that as I read these chapters to you, understand that these are first drafts and they are rough, which doesn't mean I haven't gone through and done a little cleaning up before I actually read them to you. I do. But that's different than real editing, where you pay attention to grammar and syntax. You look for the punctuation errors you've made, and the, where you do something dumb like I did in chapter 5, where I ended a sentence with an adverb and I started the next sentence with an adverb. So it was something like recklessly, period, next paragraph, interestingly, comma. Those kinds of just sloppy mistakes. I make a lot of them, in part because, and it's funny, I was talking to my friend Judy about this morning. She's also a writer. I did a review of her book, The Tasty Nut Shop, that she wrote with a friend. So that's somewhere on my, you know what, I'm just going to link it. I'm going to link it in the description. Anyhow, she and Rachel are both, Rachel taught creative writing. That's what her whole career was about, teaching it to high school kids. And Judy is also an accomplished writer as well. So I really appreciate their criticism, because Rachel especially has pointed out a lot of things to me that to others might seem nitpicky, but not to me, because I'm a nitpicky reader. But let me go back to what we were talking about. So we were talking about a phrase that a friend of mine used to say, and I loved it. He'd say, write drunk, edit sober. And I love that idea, because even though I'm not a drinker, it applies. For me, stream of consciousness writing, when I first spill my ideas out there on the page, that feels the most natural. And when I write stream of consciousness, I write the way I speak, with very little punctuation, a lot of descriptors, just kind of goes on and on. Then I'll go back and I'll read that, and now I'm calling that my notes. And I will start to put it in a format that will translate into the next chapter. So as I'm writing this story, I have two different works really that I'm writing. I'm writing all the stream of consciousness stuff that I'm keeping. I'm not getting rid of those notes. And then I'm turning it into chapters to read to you guys. So Judy says that is her writing process as well. And that was nice to know. I haven't talked to Rachel about this yet. Or if I have, we haven't really delved into it. Rachel she writes fiction, just narrative fiction, but she's really a poet. She has a poetic spirit, and when she writes, her finished work is poetic, even if it's just a narrative story. So she brings a unique perspective to her critiques of my work that I so appreciate. Anyhow, so that's that. I've been doing a lot of that. Trying to keep up with the weed eating, the raking, throwing food over to the other animals, the hand weeding, which I need to do a good 2 days worth out here in my front yard. Everything needs to be deadheaded, cut back. Everything needs fertilizer. So yeah, there's a lot to do. Now, normally when I'm feeling up to par and I'm raring to go, full of piss and vinegar, I can get out and get this stuff done fairly quickly, like within a week. However, tomorrow will be day number 14 of being sick. And it has been a real challenge not to overwork myself and put myself in bed, but also not to just lie around and be bored and feel bad and not get any fresh air. So I've been trying to walk that very narrow line between trying to be productive and not overdoing it. And for me, that's a very narrow line. Back when I was in my late 30s, early 40s, my friend Beverly, with whom I formed the rhythm section in a number of different bands. I played bass, she played drums, and we were real good friends. And the rhythm section of a band always hangs tight together. Those are always your best friends, other folks in the rhythm section. So she and I used to spend a lot of time hanging out together. And where was I going with Beverly? Oh, I know. So she had a chance to really observe me in my natural habitat over all the years we've known one another. And I remember she used to say, she says, you go, 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 and that works for you for about 3 weeks. You're up late and then up early, and you're always doing something, and we're playing music till, 1 or 2 in the morning, 3 or 4 nights a week. And she says, and then you crash. She says, I've seen you do it forever. Once a month, one weekend, you are down for the count. You're in bed. You don't take a shower. You don't eat much. You just lie in bed and sleep. She said, I have seen you do this. And she says, you know what? You need to slow your roll. You really need to learn how to conserve your energy. Well, when I was that age, I didn't. But now that I'm this age, I am. So I am trying to conserve my energy. I miss Beverly. I need to give her a call today. So yeah, that's what I've been going through. And you guys have all been watching me as I make these frequent videos. As you can tell, I sound better. And I'm not as congested and all of that. I still have the occasional coughing fit, but I am on the back side of this finally, and I'm thrilled to be able to report that. So I am going to close this little update and fire up my pressure washer, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.